When he had gone out, Jesus said, "Now the Son of Man has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him. If God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and will glorify him at once. Little children, I am with you only a little longer. You will look for me. And as I said to the Jews, so now I say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. You should also love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." This is the gospel of the Lord.
Tests are completed, books are returned, lockers are emptied. The "have a nice summer" inscribed into your yearbook stings this time, as the recipient knows it's the last summer before their lives are about to change forever. Caps are decorated with sequins and glitter, displaying a funny saying or beloved cartoon character. Gowns are carefully ironed so as to remove that crease that forms from sitting in a plastic wrapper for weeks. The stoles that signify academic accomplishments and memberships in honor societies are draped carefully on top of the gown, ready to be put on for the commencement ceremonies. Parents and siblings and grandparents and out-of-town relatives make their way to town to celebrate the accomplishments of the graduates. And last-minute details of graduation parties are in place. It's all happening. The hour is now. Graduation signals the completion of something big, the first step into new levels of responsibility and opportunities. You finally have the freedom to choose your own path in life without some other adult dictating it for you. You are that adult now. As parents and teachers and mentors and ministers, we hope we've prepared our students to be successful adults in a world full of attractive choices, some that are more advantageous than others, more life-giving than soul-sucking. By now, we hope that we've taught them all that they need to know about separating clothes into piles, one with colors, one with whites, one for delicates, one for towels, how important it is to use high-efficiency soap only in a high-efficiency washer, or risk a bubble catastrophe, or tricks like turning your jeans inside out when washing them. Is that a thing? My mom always told me to do that. And pre-treating greasy stains with a small blue drop of Dawn. We taught them the do's and don'ts of driving in Austin, which may or may not be applicable in the small cities of their colleges like Waco or Macon or San Marcos. But I bet the constant stop and go and weaving in and out of lanes doesn't seem to be as much of an issue in those places with less than 1 million people, unless you're driving near the silos where road rage is real. Our teachers have taught them to read and write. They've taught them algebra, history, chemistry, English, environmental science. They've modeled cooperation in team sports, orchestra, choir, theater productions. Here at church, our Sunday school teachers have taught them the Bible, telling the stories of Jesus, the women at the tomb, the 3 wise men of Abraham and Sarah, Moses and the Jewish exiles. They've stressed the importance of healthy relationships with themselves and with others, teaching them how to bow out of a toxic friendship or when to step up in a time of need. They've prepared them to speak up in the face of injustices and to articulate their faith in a loving way. Whether you are a Sunday school teacher, a parent, or a high school English teacher, all of us here take responsibility for preparing our young people to step out into the world with boldness and confidence that they will have the skills that they need not only to survive, but to thrive. We say goodbye trusting that in all the ways we've modeled right and wrong, taught them life lessons about respect and love, and encouraged them to speak up for good, that our students feel ready to continue on the path we've set them on without us. In the gospel story today, we encounter Jesus saying his goodbyes, knowing he's headed for the cross. He hopes he's prepared his disciples well enough to continue on without him, because what's about to come next is not going to be easy. It's going to change their lives forever. The hour is here. At the beginning of the chapter, the reader enters into a meal already in progress. The smell of freshly baked bread is in the air. Cups of wine are half full. Bowls are filled with a thick vegetable stew, the bread used as a spoon. Jesus sits shoulder to shoulder with his disciples, unable to shake the sad truth that he's about to be betrayed and killed. Does it show on his face? The meal nearly complete, Jesus calmly gets up from the table. All eyes are on him. Jesus takes off his robe, ties an apron around his waist, and pours clean water into a basin. He calls each disciple over, one by one, even the one who will betray him, submerging their dust-caked feet into the basin, the water getting murkier and murkier after each foot is cleaned. His apron heavy with water, Jesus' hands begin to smell sour from the dirty water. He doesn't care. This is what love looks like. Jesus calls Simon Peter to the basin, but Peter refuses. "You're not going to wash my feet, ever," he proclaims. But Jesus persists, insisting that Peter participate in this intimate act, for he has a lesson to teach, as always. Jesus knows he isn't going to be around much longer to hold their hands, to affirm them, or to teach them. He really hopes that they get it, that they see that love, it's not a noun, it's a verb of action. Jesus embodies this kind of love by modeling what he wants his disciples to do after he departs. He loves without grudges, without limits, without requirements or prerequisites. He doesn't make excuses or make a cost-benefit analysis on the risks of loving someone. Jesus washed the feet of the one who would betray him right at the same time as he washed the feet of his beloved disciple. Jesus' love doesn't discriminate or play favorites. He lowers himself to the position of a servant, a practical, physical way of loving someone else, getting involved up close and personal to all the muck and stink. He shows them the power of service to others, how it can break down barriers and unite an unlikely bunch. In this simple act of foot washing, the disciples experience a new way of being community for each other, creating spaces of trust within their vulnerability and fear of uncertainty. This is what love looks like in action. As if they weren't already filled with enough anxiety, Jesus issues another reminder to his remaining disciples that he's about to leave them, and they've got to do this without him. Where he is going, they cannot go. He can't hold their hand anymore. There's work to be done here, and it's up to them to take responsibility to do God's work. So he gives them a new commandment, an already familiar command, but with an added twist. He says, "Love one another, just as I have loved you. You should also love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." Jesus says that this kind of love is the mark of true discipleship. Not right belief, not wearing a cross necklace, not reciting Bible verses, or saying the sinner's prayer. It's not your political leanings or moral purity or those Bible verses you post on Facebook. It's so much more than all of that. It's loving as Christ loves you. It's love in action. It expects activity, and it doesn't rely on sentimental feelings. It's not the Hallmark card kind of love. It's acknowledging the humanity of the person begging for money on the street corner, asking their name, or simply looking up from your phone to smile. It's going out of your way to treat someone experiencing homelessness the same way that you would treat your best friend, or someone that you really want to impress. It's extending the hand of friendship to someone you so deeply disagree with, to a Republican, to a Democrat. It's washing the feet of someone who hasn't washed them in a very long time. It's sitting with someone in their hospital room who has no family to sit with them. It's radical, and it has the power to transform everything. Radical love looks betrayal in the face and says, I'll love you anyways. It wades in the water of mud and murk, because as Leander Keck puts it, to love one another as Jesus loves us is to live a life thoroughly shaped by a love that knows no limits, by a love whose expression brings the believer closer into a relationship with God, with Jesus, and with one another. It is to live a love that carries with it a whole new concept of the possibilities of community. When people show up for each other in service, we experience a tangible sign of what it means to abide in Jesus. And this kind of love can revolutionize communities. It's how we can remember that the way that Jesus loved us first, unconditionally, without limits. Radical love loves in spite of our want to hold grudges against someone who's wronged us. It looks past embarrassments and failures. When we love like Christ, we can see firsthand how transformative it is. Our motivations to serve others begin to look less about ourselves and more about experiencing Jesus in person. But radical love doesn't mean putting up with abuse or mistreatment. Sometimes the hardest thing we can do is acknowledge that we have to walk away from a toxic relationship. Radical love is knowing that saying goodbye to someone and breaking the cycle of abuse is the most loving thing that we can do. In the new book, Educated, a memoir about her life, Tara Westover tells the story of growing up in rural Idaho to a survivalist Mormon family, isolated from others, lacking a proper education, and never once seeing a medical professional as a child. She didn't have a birth certificate until she was 9, and even then, she's not even 100% sure the date is right. When she was a teenager, she began to suffer physical and emotional abuse at the hands of her own brother. When Tara confronted her parents about her black eyes and broken wrists, they didn't believe her brother was responsible. Their relationship began to crumble as Tara spoke openly about the abuse, her family in denial about the truth of the situation. Knowing the most loving thing to do was walk away, Tara severed all ties with her family. She says in an interview, "You can love someone and still choose to say goodbye to them. You can miss a person every day and still be glad that they are no longer in your life." Radical love means refusing to be mistreated or becoming the victim. It's flipping the expectation that loving like Christ means that you have to take whatever someone gives you. The world tells us to think of ourselves and get what's ours. Women are taught to put the needs of others ahead of theirs, suppressing their true needs for fear someone will stop loving them. But being a doormat is the antithesis of radical love. Radical love means challenging an oppressive power. It's standing up to injustice and demanding equality. Radical love extends a hand to the oppressed, pulls them up and walks hand in hand together, fighting for equality. Radical love is standing up for the rights of women to receive equal pay and access to adequate health care and paid maternity leave. Radical love means paying your property taxes to fund schools that educate at-risk students so that they can have an opportunity to thrive in a society that already has them 2 steps behind. Radical love holds institutions accountable for sexual abuse and harassment. Radical love means reducing our dependence on oil to reduce the damage we've done on the earth that God has trusted us with. Radical love means standing up to racial injustices in our criminal justice system that disproportionately incarcerates people of color. Yes, Jesus' love is radical, and it's going to take effort and a lot of practice. People are going to think you're crazy, and they might question your motives. But how else are we going to experience Jesus' presence on earth if we don't put our hands into the dirty water to wash our neighbor's feet, just like Jesus did? Serving our neighbor, knowing the risk involved, but doing it anyways, because that's what Jesus does. Jesus loves without limits, loving in the face of betrayal and heartbreak. What a radical way to live life. Jesus is obsessed with love. Are we?